So if you think about how much water is stored in your body, so a litre of water weighs a kilo, so 2.2 pounds. So if you think about how much of a fluctuation that is in fluids in your body, that's absolutely massive.
Okay, everybody, I want to welcome you to our Hustle and Fit interview series. I have an amazing guest. Her name is Sophie Medlin, and she's a well-recognized consultant dietitian in the London area. I hope I say this correctly, she's a gastrointestinal and colorectal health specialist. that was a mouthful. And she's worked with acute hospitals specializing in gastrointestinal diseases before moving into academia, where she worked at lecturer at King's College London. And Sophie is a go-to spokesperson for media when it comes to evidence-based nutrition. So she really knows her stuff and really understands what we need to do when it comes to our overall nutrition. So first off, welcome. And how's it going out there in good old London?
Thanks for introducing me so nicely. Yeah, London is a funny place at the moment. I don't know if you can see the rain, but it's pretty miserable. So if you hear lots of water gushing around, it's nothing to do with me. It's the weather outside. Obviously, we're all in lockdown, so it's all a bit of a funny time. But yeah, it's good. It's good in London.
Know it is pretty crazy right now with the overall lockdown and everything. My sister actually lived in London for a while, and she was absolutely in love with it. Her biggest thing that she loved about it was the access to all of Europe. Like, she could pretty much take a train and then go anywhere she wanted to. And she's like a big traveler. So London was her place to make sure she could do everything. So
yeah, London's a great place to live.
So how did you get into what you're doing right now and so forth?
So I was a strange 15-year-old child who knew this is what I wanted to do. So I was very lucky. Wow. So I was studying science, and I was studying food, like food technology and cooking and things. And I was really interested in both of those things, also interested in psychology and sociology and all those kinds of things. And one of my teachers said to me, have you thought about looking at a career in nutrition? And what I did was explore that and think about whether that's what I wanted to do. And I sort of learned that there's the difference between nutritionists and dietitians, being that dietitians work in hospitals, but can also work as nutritionists. So I thought at that age, well, I might as well do whatever keeps the most doors open to me. So that's what I did. So then in this country, you go to university for 3 or 4 years to study nutrition and dietetics. So learning how to apply the science of nutrition to medicine. And then from there, I went to work in hospitals, which is what everyone does here as well. So dietitians all work in hospitals. So I worked in the NHS, so the National Health Service in England, for about 8 or 9 years. And then went into academia. So I was a lecturer and researcher for 5 years, and now I run my business. So kind of keeps me out of trouble, but that's how I got into it, just by sort of knowing this is what I wanted to do. And also, I don't think I really understood what the profession was all about or what I was getting myself into at that time, but it's been amazing. I'm really lucky, and every kind of new avenue I take has been really exciting and interesting for me. So I feel very lucky.
Oh, wow. That's amazing. So with your background now, that you're so well, what are the things that people typically get wrong when it comes to their diets? Like, what are the things that they mess up on?
So I guess the thing that's most relevant to most people is that people assume that if they just knew what they should eat, they would just eat it and it would be fine. And I think lots of coaches and personal trainers and people like this also have this perception that if they just tell people what to eat, they'll change and everything will be fine. And of course, we all know that our eating behavior is very little to do with like knowing that something's healthy. Very, very few of our food decisions and the decisions we make around food are that we're eating them because it's healthy and because we're hungry. So often we are, subject to marketing. We're also maybe eating for emotional reasons. We're eating because we're tired. We're eating because it's there. We're eating because it's culturally relevant. We're eating because it's a special occasion. I think there's this kind of perception that we need the new diet book and we need a new diet plan and we need to follow the latest trend in dieting. And actually what we all need to do is kind of sit down and think about why we're eating rather than what we're eating. And that's where you can really make some changes and really improve people's lives. But I think I guess that's kind of the biggest mistake that I see, is that people say, "Oh, write me a diet plan," or "What do you think about this new diet?" And actually, you just need to find out what's right for you and unpack all the psychology behind it to actually make a difference.
Actually, you kind of brought up something that's interesting for me. I had a conversation with my wife actually, and she she was saying how she's tired of, she's following like a very loosey-goosey meal plan that we're just testing out. And then she says to me, she's like, I don't want to keep eating the same things over and over again. And it brought up this conversation in my own head, which is, how do we keep it fun, interesting, and different, and just kind of like, like, can we do the McDonald's, but in a better way? Like, can we do what McDonald's did for bad food? Can we do that same thing for good food? Like, how does that work out, basically?
So I think the secret to all that stuff is to take some of this like good, bad language away from a lot of things and just think, oh, today, like right now I fancy eating this, or I'm going to eat this and it's going to be delicious, I'm going to enjoy it. And having that kind of freedom of choice around food generally like frees up your mindset with it. So if you think there's less restriction, there's less kind of things that you can and can't have, and just more freedom of decision making, then you can kind of go with your body, go with what you want on that day. And if you're really tuned into yourself and what you really need, and you're really invested in your own health and all that kind of stuff, then you'll make good decisions about your diet most of the time. Nobody actually wants to eat cheeseburgers all day, every day. It doesn't make you feel good. You don't sleep well. It has lots of knock-on effects. If you're tuned into that, then your body will try and choose the right things for you, and you can be guided a little bit more. And we call that sort of whole school of thought, it's called intuitive eating. And there's some really positive stuff that you can take from it.
Oh, okay. That's interesting. And then how does this all play into like gut health and all of that? Like, and why, and okay, and the biggest question too is, why is this important? Like, why does your gut matter so much when it comes to your overall like body and the way that you feel and so forth?
Yeah, great question. So I guess the first bit that we were talking about just then is sort of one side of the work that I do, and the other side of the work that I do, which so that first side is about the reasons why people eat and emotional eating, and so the psychology behind eating. So there's like kind of that half of my career that I do, and the other half is kind of more in the gut health stuff. And all of nutrition and all of our bodies are kind of connected, so it's all much of the same thing. If we think about the bacteria that live in our colon, so all of us have got like, your digestion works by your stomach. So first we eat and it goes into your stomach, which sits just under your rib cage, and then the food gets stripped into your small intestine, and your small intestine is where all of the nutrients are absorbed. So almost all of the nutrients that you need for survival, carbohydrates, fats, proteins, vitamins, minerals, everything is digested and absorbed through your bowel wall and into your bloodstream in your small bowel. Then it travels through to your colon, and anything that's left over from digestion, stuff that you can't digest, then gets digested by bacteria that live in your colon, so your large bowel. And your large bowel is huge. It travels all the way up from one side of your body, all the way up across under your rib cage and down again. It's about 1.5 meters, so it's actually a massive organ. And in there, there's trillions and trillions of bacteria, all different types, that are all digesting the leftover food that you haven't absorbed. And some of those bacteria then mean that you can absorb some more of that food. And some of them, when they're digesting the food, so they'll be fermenting the food that's left over, they release things like neurotransmitters. So they release chemicals into your bloodstream that communicate with your brain, that communicate with the rest of your body, and that can have a massive impact on your overall health. So we know that people who have depression have different gut bacteria than people who don't have depression. We know that people who have diabetes have differences, people with heart disease, all of these different medical conditions. We see differences in people's colonic bacteria, that profile of the bacteria that live in your colon. And what they love to eat is plant foods. So the more kind of plant fibers that you can eat, the more food that they've got. If you feed them things like meat that we can't digest very well, so there's lots of leftover protein going into your colon, then that's not so great for them. If they've got lots of like very high fat things going through and you can't absorb all the fat, then they don't like that very much, and you end up having a more propensity towards the sort of bacterial profile that's associated with some of these diseases. So like, basically, your gut health has a massive impact on your whole body, and it's really important that we think about it and focus on it.
And then you're saying like veggies are like the main way to kind of improve our overall gut health. I was on an interview just recently about that. We were talking about the increase in, because I'm not gonna lie, I'm a meat eater, but I'm realizing as I keep doing, I'm seeing these Netflix movies, I'm seeing, like there's just so much going on. But I do recognize that I have to increase the veggies in my life. I just know instinctively that it's good for my body. How how does one, okay, actually one big question. One of the concerns or fears is that if I start eating a lot of more veggies, can I get the protein intake? Because I'm a guy who want to get bigger, you know, stronger. Can I get to where I want to go if I increase the veggies and reduce the proteins and stuff like that? You know, what are my options in terms of that?
So in terms of your gut health, it's not that you necessarily need to reduce the protein. You definitely want to focus on the quality of the protein that you're having and not having lots of processed meat, not having lots of processed foods, even like protein shakes. That's kind of a processed food, a heavily processed food, really, when we think about it. So actually focusing on good quality sources of lean protein and lots of vegetables will help you with that. And I think that it's not just fruit and vegetables, it's also things like whole grains. So things like oats and all that sort of thing as well are really helpful. Nuts and seeds are super helpful for your gut bacteria. So all those sorts of things are really, really helpful and really important. And I guess when I'm working with people, I think about trying to get them to focus on their meals being based around those good quality protein sources and maybe 3 portions of veg or 3 portions of fruit or whatever, wherever it comes in. So just trying to space it out through the day. So it's not like, oh, I'm going to go away and eat 8 portions of fruit and veg. It's like, okay, can I add an extra one at lunchtime? Could I have some carrot sticks or some cucumber on the side of my sandwich, for example? Do you know what I mean? It's those kind of baby steps towards things, adding little portions in through the day so that you're just topping yourself up a little bit. Sprinkling some seeds on your soup or on your salad, those sorts of things can make a massive difference.
So, you know, since you're kind of promoting the veggie conversation, is it true? Will I get a better sex drive? Will I be more stronger if I go fully vegan? Or is that a little bit of, you know, a little bit too much overpromise and under deliver?
Yeah, totally. So I've been in big trouble with the vegan community in this country for a while for saying that actually it's not the right thing to do for your health. So following a vegan diet might be absolutely the right thing for you from an ethical perspective, from a moral perspective, from an environmental perspective. It might feel right for you in terms of those kind of cognitive decisions that you're making. But your body, we're all evolved to be carnivores. We're all evolved to eat, well, omnivores, really, be able to eat lots of plants and lots of vegetables and lots of animal products. That's what we are. That's what we were designed for. And so we need to be, when we think about the kind of, it's a bit of a pendulum effect, really. So here's vegans over here, and here's most people in America and in the UK, I guess, who are maybe eating 2 or 3 portions of meat a day and having too much meat in their diet. And actually all of us would benefit from coming kind of towards the middle of this. So the vegans would benefit from having a bit more meat and animal products in their diet, if it's right for them cognitively and morally and all that kind of stuff. And lots of carnivores would benefit from coming towards the middle in terms of having lots more plants in their diet and a bit less meat in their diet. And each of us are completely individual. So your genetics will dictate whether you are someone that wants to be a little bit closer to the meat eating side. Maybe you're a woman who has really heavy periods. Maybe you're a really big guy who requires a lot of additional protein, but also a lot of additional things like B12 and iron, which you can't really find in a plant-based diet. And then there's going to be lots of people on this side who don't do so well with those things, who have higher risk of bowel cancer and all these kinds of things in their family from a genetic perspective. And they are better off being a bit more planty in the way that they eat. And maybe they absorb more from their plants than other people. And maybe they can convert some of the essential fatty acids that most people can't. And therefore they thrive more on a plant-based diet. It's really important that you find like your place as an individual on that pendulum, and don't think that just because one person's a vegan, you should be, or one person eats meat every 3 times a day, so you should as well. Like we all need to listen to our bodies a little bit more.
And yeah, I was going to say, my next question was, when you say listen to your body, how do I start to identify where I swing? Do I just eat and then, oh, this feels bad, and then, yep, I tried this feels good? Like, how would you start to kind of go in the direction of understanding my body?
So I would definitely say to list like the things that you can measure or things that you can tune into in terms of your body's function are things like how your bowel is functioning. So normal bowel function would be having your bowels open between 3 times a day and 3 times a week. And if it's like hard and difficult to pass, or if you're struggling or you're bloated or you've got winds and all these kinds of things, then chances are that's a sign that your body isn't really naturally enjoying the kind of diet that you're eating. So that's where you might want to switch up and eat a bit more plants and a few more plants and different fibers and that kind of thing, and just try and see if that makes you feel better. Things like sleep quality, we can also tune into that a little bit more. Today I ate loads of vegetables, I slept much better. Today I had loads of meat for dinner and I didn't sleep so well. Those kinds of little signals and signs that your body's giving you all the time. Obviously, things like your energy levels, your exercise performance, all of these things are little signs about what your diet is doing and how it's impacting you day to day. And, you know, it's about kind of committing to looking at things on a weekly or even monthly basis. So it might be that you say, okay, this month I'm going to work on adding 2 more portions of vegetables in my diet a day. And at the end of the month, I'm going to reevaluate, maybe keep a bit of a diary, how my energy levels are, how my performance is, how my bowels are functioning, how my sleep is, all these kinds of things, and kind of tuning in a little bit more to how you feel.
Wow. You made me kind of think of diet, like having a nutrition plan and a diet plan very different. It's like, it almost sounds as if it's customized to me. Like there's not this one size fits all thing. It's really like what my body needs from me. That's what I pretty much give it. It's almost like that kind of perspective.
Yeah, totally. And that's where, if we can teach people to be more in tune with their bodies and less dictated to from kind of external sources, what they should and shouldn't eat and what's good and bad and all that kind of stuff. Like you look at yourself and look at me, and it's quite clear that we have really different nutritional needs. But right. I guess sometimes you might look at another man who maybe has a body that you aspire to, for example, and you might think, okay, so that's what I aspire to, and therefore I should be eating the same as him. And actually your DNA, your genetics are completely different. What you can achieve and what you can't achieve is completely different. And also what your body needs day to day and where you come from, like all this kind of stuff has a massive impact on your the impact of your nutrition on your body, and also what your body needs in terms of diet.
This is fascinating. I'm cognizant of the time, but I'm like super interested in the stuff that you're talking about, because I've been on a fitness journey myself, and this experience is like really teaching me a lot of things. And the fact that you brought the psychological into the equation with the nutrition is so important, because I also agree that when you're feeling healthy, you're able to perform better in your job and your business and stuff like that. And that's absolutely amazing. So I guess the next question I would have in terms of that is, how does the probiotic movement and all that stuff affect with the gut health? Because my trainer was saying, okay, you need to take probiotics because it's about gut health. How does that play? And then how do you know which probiotic you need to take? Because that's another confusing situation altogether.
Yeah, great question. So probiotics are good bacteria. So when you take a probiotic supplement, you're taking a dose or a certain number of those good bacteria that live in your colon. And those good bacteria are doing things, as we were talking about earlier, like talking to your brain, sending signals around your body, releasing good chemicals that have an impact on your overall health. They may also improve your gut function. So you may find that you benefit from having less wind, less bloating, these kinds of things that sometimes all of us get from time to time. The problem with probiotics is there's so many on the market. They're not very well regulated. What they say on the label in terms of what's alive in it when you take it they may have all died by the time you actually get them in your house and take them. There's no guarantee that there's anything left in there. So there's all these sort of tricky little things to navigate with probiotics. The best thing you can really do if you want to think about your gut health is think about feeding the good bacteria that you already have in there. So you already have loads and loads of really good bacteria in your colon. It may just be that you're not feeding them enough for them to grow and thrive and survive and get like increase in their population so that you benefit from their sort of health properties. So you can take probiotic supplements. The best thing to do is get some advice and some individual advice on which ones to take, depending on what symptom you're trying to target and what kind of things you're trying to achieve from them. There are some good quality kind of broad spectrum probiotics that you could try, but if you don't feed them enough fiber, they're just never going to survive. There's just no chance of them being able to actually populate your colon. So there's also different preparations. So some will be specially coated so that they make it through all the rest of your gastrointestinal system and then into your colon. You need to remember that your stomach environment is like battery acid. It will just kill as much bacteria as it possibly can as soon as it gets into your stomach. So in that sense, if you take certain types of probiotics, they're just not going to reach where we want them to in any capacity at all. So it's about kind of thinking about what you're trying to achieve, what you want to get from them, and actually, are you already doing all the things you can do to support the bacteria that are already living in there? Otherwise, you might as well sort of start at the beginning and just eat some more fruits and vegetables and some more whole grains and stuff. Save your money. I always say spend your money in the fruit and veg aisle and not in the pharmacy aisle, you know?
Oh, good advice. That's some very good advice. So, okay, last question. This is just more of because I want to know, because I keep hearing these different things about certain foods that are better and so forth and so on. So I'm kind of curious about this. What would you say are your top foods that people need to have in their diet? Like they should be including this inside their diet. I know we did talk about like trying to basically figure out what's good for your body, but are there some foods that people should just be eating because it's a part of the human nature? Like we should all be following that base guideline.
Yeah, totally. So I would say, obviously we've talked about fruits and vegetables. The most important thing is to eat a really good variety of fruits and vegetables. I think that we sometimes get caught in the trap of having like chicken and broccoli, chicken and sweet potato, especially when we're training and things like that, and you might be quite focused. If you're having the same every single day, then you're not necessarily getting the full spectrum. If you eat a really broad range of fruits and vegetables, you get all of the different vitamins and minerals that you can get from them, and you get all of these special plant chemicals, like so things like we call them phytochemicals. You've probably heard of antioxidants, but there's also this whole other school of them called polyphenols, and they all have really great benefits in your body. And the more of a spectrum in terms of color of fruits and vegetables that you eat, the more of these little benefits that you'll get. So variety of fruits and vegetables is like number one. Nuts and seeds, but particularly kind of eating some nuts. If you can get in the habit of eating a handful of nuts most days, particularly if you have mixed nuts, then you can really benefit from there's lots of little nutrients in nuts that are very difficult to find in other parts of your diet. So things like selenium and zinc and these tiny little compounds that are just more difficult to source. Like nuts are just the best source of them. And if you imagine us evolving as humans, if there were nuts around, we definitely would have eaten them. But so many of us kind of slip away from that. Like nuts are so delicious, added to salads or chopped up on vegetables or whatever, like however you want to include them. Great source of protein, amazing snack for between your meals, don't affect your blood sugars, all this kind of good stuff. So nuts are the next one. They're like one of the things that I talk about all the time is oily fish. So oily fish, but all kinds of fish, but particularly oily fish. So things like mackerel and sardines and these kinds of things. Salmon as well to a certain extent. They contain 2 types of omega-3 fatty acids that are so important for you, and they're so essential for your brain health and the structure of your brain and how your brain functions and communicates with the rest of your body, but most importantly the structure of your brain. So oily fish has this particular fatty acid in it that is a bit like, so if you don't have it in your diet, it's a bit like taking if you imagine your brain, right, we're talking about the brain, so you've got your brain in your head, and if you don't eat oily fish, it's a bit like taking out 25% of the bricks of your house and replacing them with polystyrene or like some kind of filler. Like your brain structure kind of looks the same, but it just doesn't function the same. It's just not as strong, it's not as robust. And as you get into old age, you're much more likely to get things like Alzheimer's and dementia and those kinds of things if we don't include oily fish in our diets. So oily fish is super important for your brain, also super important for your heart health and your circulation and how things move around your body. So if people are struggling with concentration and focus and all those kinds of things, we know that that oily fish can really, really help our mental performance and protect our brain into old age. If you hate fish, take a supplement, don't scrimp on it. You can also take algae oil, which is a similar one. So if you're a vegan, then definitely take algae oil supplements. They give you the same fatty acids. I just got delivered a box from a company today for my patients, which is great news. So yeah, these oily fish, the essential fatty acids, so important and so often forgotten in the stuff that we do. I think those are probably my top 3.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess that's kind of where I would start for people mainly. Those are the things that I'm looking for. The other thing that I would I feel passionately about is dairy. And I think there's a real trend. I don't know about actually in Canada and in America. Sorry. But in the UK, there's a real trend towards moving to plant-based milks instead of having dairy. And dairy contains this kind of matrix of nutrients in it that are so good for your bones, so good for your body, and it's very difficult to get them from elsewhere. So if you're taking dairy out your diet, you really need to find iodine, really importantly, from somewhere else. And you're not going to be able to find that easily. Vitamin D, calcium, obviously. And within the dairy products, it's just so easy for it to be delivered into your body and for you to get the benefits from it.
Oh my gosh, that's so big. Don't kill dairy? That is like everyone is saying to get rid of dairy. That's crazy. Wow.
I know. So to be fair, in this country, in the UK, we do have slightly different regulations around dairy and farming. So the farming practices in the UK are a little bit better in terms of human health than perhaps in America and in other countries. So in the UK, like, it's not so controversial to say eat more dairy, it's good for you. Whereas I know in other countries there are some slight differences and difficulties. But if you can source dairy from small farms, and if you can source, like, particularly like Greek yogurt and stuff like that, if you can get that from a small farm near you in a local place, then definitely have it. It's so good for your health.
Wow, that is new. One day we're gonna meet up again and have a long conversation about dairy, because that's a very big conversation as well. So, I mean, you provided so much great information, Sophia. How do people find you and really get to know more about what you're doing?
So all my social media is under Sophie Dietitian. So you can find me on Instagram. I do some Facebook stuff, and then obviously on Twitter. I don't like Twitter very much; it's not very friendly. But then my website is citydietitians.co.uk. And with the business, basically what I do and what we do as a company is provide one-on-one care for patients. So we see people in our clinics, they come to see us face to face, and we deal with whatever their medical problems are. I also provide consultancy to businesses and companies. So I work in product development, designing vitamins, and also in services that people want to provide in terms of nutrition. And then, as we said at the beginning, I do quite a lot of media work these days. So providing evidence-based content for newspapers, magazines. I write for Forbes. I do some TV work, all this kind of stuff.
Wow, awesome. I can see why you're having so much success. Really know your stuff, and it's awesome. One final question to end off the show. If you could leave the world with one thing when it comes to health, what would be the one thing you'd want the world to really realize? You know, your last final gift to them from a health-based perspective.
I think it would be that health lies in the middle of all of the extremes. So no carbs versus like a vegan diet versus carnivore. There's so many like keto diets, there's no carbohydrates at all. There's so many extremes in terms of popular culture and diets, and actually health lies in the middle of all of those extremes, and you are all on a pendulum, and you need to find where you fit on that swinging point in terms of that pendulum, what you need as an individual.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sophie. You're amazing. I hope everyone got a lot out of this. You have to go look up Sophie. The information she's providing is amazing. And there's just so much good stuff that's coming out. So anyways, thank you guys for tuning in. And honestly, take care of your health and keep growing. See you guys later.